is mindset and the power of belief. So let's get right into it because there's some fascinating research that I want to share with you tonight. And it's on all these different aspects that we've been talking about the past few days: diet, sleep, stress management, exercise, and aging itself. And today we're going to talk about how your thoughts about all of these things affect your body, affect your physical body. So the first part, we're going to talk about diet. So we've been talking a lot about, what are the right foods to eat. So in tonight's talk, we're going to talk about what is the right belief about your diet, the right belief about the foods you're eating, because as we'll see, that actually has an impact on how your body processes those foods. So everyone is talking, online about what's the right diet, what's the optimal diet, but I don't hear many people talking about what's the optimal set of beliefs about your food that you should have. And that has a really significant impact on the physiology. So since this is my final session, I want to just kind of recap some of the things I've talked about in the past 3 days. So we've talked a lot about food, of course, the dark chocolate that was mentioned, yes, how to eat to support the microbiome. Make sure you're getting those 40 plant foods in a week, plant diversity. Make sure every day you're getting ideally 10 servings of fruits and vegetables combined. So that's the optimal number for longevity, if you can get that target of 10 servings combined of fruits and vegetables. We've talked a lot about toxins, detoxification. I'm a big fan of the sauna. Any type of sweating will be beneficial. Good sleep. And and then stress and the mind-body connection. So we're going to begin by just this overview that your beliefs and thoughts about diet, sleep, exercise, stress, and aging impact your physical body, your biochemistry in really meaningful ways. And I'm going to share some fascinating research about how this plays out. This is something which is called the milkshake study. I'm going to start with this slide. So this was a very interesting study where they had people consume a shake, a low-calorie drink. So half the people were told that they were having a very low-calorie beverage, right? And they called it Sensi Shake. It was on the label, said 0% fat, 0 added sugar, 140 calories. And the other half were told they were having a very rich beverage, which was labeled indulgence. It was supposed to have 620 calories, very rich, and in truth, both of these shakes had 300 calories, so right in the middle. But half the people were told this is a very low-calorie drink, and half the people were told it's very high-calorie. So what we're going to measure is a metabolic hormone called ghrelin. So basically, the study tests how this affects the body metabolically. So I want to do a quick poll before showing the results. So how many people think that the high-calorie drink led to better metabolic effects in the body, the high-calorie labeled drink? Show of hands, okay, a few scattered. How many people feel like the low-calorie drink led to better metabolic effects? Okay, so more people think the low-calorie one did. So the model of the old model about metabolism is that it's just calories in and calories out. But this study will show how beliefs really impact that. So ghrelin, just to explain, is the hunger hormone. So it's something that's produced in the gut when ghrelin levels rise. It signals the brain that it's time to seek out food. And then when you eat, when you are satiated, the ghrelin levels drop, hunger subsides. So you want the levels to drop appropriately. And then there's actually a metabolic boost that occurs from that drop in ghrelin. So you want the drop in ghrelin. That'll be important. And scientists thought that ghrelin levels fluctuated only in response to what's in the stomach, number of calories, is it the size of the meal that's consumed, and so forth. But Yeah, so usually after a big meal, ghrelin levels drop more, and that is tied to the increased satiety, lower appetite, and you get that boost in metabolism. If you have like a snack or a light meal, a small meal, your ghrelin levels don't drop as much, so you remain hungry. You know, it's logical. Your appetite is about the same, and you don't get that metabolic boost from the ghrelin drop. You might get hungry again sooner. You might eat again sooner. So in this study, the ghrelin levels dropped 3 times more in the people who were consuming the high-calorie shake, the indulgent shake, compared to when people were drinking the sensible shake. Both shakes were identical, but those who thought they were consuming that high-calorie beverage actually had a better metabolic response. So if you believed you were drinking that so-called indulgent shake that is, very rich and high in calories, your body responded as if you had actually consumed more, but the result was satiation and better hormonal and metabolic changes. So the insight from this study is that, well, number one, food labels are not just labels. They actually evoke beliefs, and that shifts the body's processing of the nutrients that are consumed. So the question then becomes, what should you believe to maximize the benefits of eating healthy? So it appears that believing you are consuming an indulgent, nutrient-rich meal is actually better for you metabolically, and in contrast, thinking that you're limiting yourself to a restricted, low-calorie meal may be counterproductive. I think it has something to do with the brain doesn't respond well to deprivation, or the sense that you're depriving yourself. So I'm not saying that food choices don't matter. That's why I've been talking about food for the past 3 days in many hours. So so the beliefs and mindset do matter, but within reason. It definitely matters the food choices you do make. I'm not saying that you can eat processed food and fast food and have the right set of beliefs and that will take care of that. No, it's not a either or situation. So we don't want to be dualistic here, but both are true. Your choices matter, but your beliefs about food matter as well. So I think I want to bring in an idea from the Charaka Samhita, so we're going to shift and talk about the Ayurvedic perspective. So the Charaka Samhita is one of the 3 classical Ayurvedic texts, along with Sushruta Samhita and Ashtanga Hridaya. It's more than 2,000 years old, one of the classical Ayurvedic treatises. And in that, they really emphasize the power of the mind in maintaining both physical and mental equilibrium. And the principle that's stated there is that the mind possesses the power to either nurture or disrupt the body's balance, which directly impacts susceptibility to disease, vitality, symptoms as well. And so it was understood then in Ayurveda that beliefs shape an individual's perception of reality and then can impact their physiological state. So in Charaka, they emphasize the importance of cultivating positive and harmonious beliefs, not just about food, but about other aspects of life as well. So this is from the Charaka Samhita. So I'll just read the English translation part, which is, mind is defined as the entity which, even on contact with self, sense organs, and sense objects, is responsible for production of knowledge by its attending or non-attending respectively. Subtleness and oneness are known as 2 qualities of mind. So the way I interpret this is that it's really emphasizing the primacy of mind as responsible for ultimately interpreting and translating. Wow, I don't know what's going on over there, but I didn't realize people were so excited about my talk. But it's true, yeah. So ultimately, the power of mind was recognized by Charaka. So that power of mind is responsible for interpreting reality, production of knowledge by its choices, its attending or non-attending. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. This is another section of the Charaka Samhita where it talks about so I want to highlight the second and third paragraphs here. So It talks about the combinations of the qualities, rajas, tamas, and sattva, which are in everyone, but whatever is predominant, whatever trait manifests most frequently in the mental makeup, that is the predominant association. So I think this aspect is also very important, that with beliefs and thoughts, a lot of it is about whatever trait is most frequently repeated, whatever thought is most frequently repeated, your daily patterns, your daily thought process. So that's very important in cultivating the right mindset as well. So to summarize what I think about food, I think beliefs about food should be centered around satisfaction and indulgence rather than deprivation. So at a high level. And of course, food choices matter, but I think we should find ways to really feel that indulgence in a healthy way and not feel like we have to restrict ourselves or deprive ourselves necessarily. So that's how food affects, how beliefs affect food. Now we're going to talk about exercise. And this was a study which was raising the question of, is exercise a placebo, the mind-body sort of tool? So in this study, they looked at 84 female housekeeping attendants in the US who were working in various hotels. And they measured their various physiological variables like blood pressure, weight, different metabolic factors. And there were the intervention was very simple. So those who were in the test group, the informed group, were told that the work they do, cleaning hotel rooms, is good exercise and satisfies the Surgeon General's recommendations for an active lifestyle. They were given examples of how their work was exercise. And subjects in the control group, they were not given that information. They just continued doing their daily work. Now, what's interesting was the baseline beliefs of these mostly women, that while they exceeded the Surgeon General's recommendation for physical activity, they were not aware that their work was good exercise. In fact, 2/3 of them said, I don't exercise at all, even though they were exceeding the government recommendations for exercise. 2/3 said not exercising regularly, about 1/3 said not exercising at all. So their beliefs about exercise were quite different. And then they had that intervention to learn just their daily activities constitute exercise. And then what the result was that although actual workload activity did not change, 4 weeks after this educational intervention, the informed group perceived themselves to be getting more exercise. They weren't doing anything different. It's not like they were suddenly taking the stairs more or moving them. They were just doing the same activity, but there were measurable changes in their body. So compared to the control group, they showed significant decrease in weight, decrease in blood pressure, body fat percentage, waist to hip ratio, and body mass index, just by changing how they thought about their physical activity, their movement. So this study showed that exercise is related to perception, partially, because an increase in perceived exercise without any changes in actual movement or exercise does result in physiological improvement. So in this study, there was a drop in systolic blood pressure of about 10 points, which is very significant weight loss, the other positive results I mentioned. And so I think there are public health implications for this, because there might be many people who are physically active as part of their work or in home life, and just not realizing that counts. Being physically active throughout the day, all of those activities, sweeping the floor, vacuuming, doing dishes, whatever it is, as long as if you're moving and physically active, that counts towards exercise. So I think this is also showing that your beliefs about exercise impact physiology quite a bit. So we can say that exercise affects health in part via the placebo effect, And I think it's important to, because this all goes back to the evolutionary concept that I was talking about 2 nights ago, how we evolved for millions of years extremely active. Throughout the day we were moving. There was no exercise. It was just survival. It was daily life, the tasks necessary to get through the day-to-day. So being very active, moving throughout the day, getting your 10,000 steps, etc. That's really how human beings evolved. So we should think about movement as just something that needs to be integrated throughout every single day. Okay, question next about sleep. So, do your beliefs about sleep, I learned a lot about sleep from my cat, so do your beliefs about sleep impact the way you feel each day, regardless of how you slept, whether you actually slept poorly or well? So this was a very interesting study. They took 63 participants and they randomized them to get this what's called sham feedback on sleep quality based on a device that's sort of like like an Apple Watch. It measures sleep, but more of a medical grade device. And what they told half the people that they had a good night's sleep, and then gave them positive feedback, and then half the people were told that they really slept poorly, and it was not connected to their actual sleep. So then scientists could see like how actually their sleep was, but it was not tied to that. And then participants completed reports of symptoms, energy level, and also tests of cognition, other attention that depend on sleep-related performance. And those who were randomized to the negative feedback actually had much worse daytime function, decreased alertness, increased sleepiness, fatigue in the evening, compared with those who were given the positive feedback about sleep, independent of actual sleep quality. So independent of how many hours they actually slept or how deeply they actually slept. So the positive feedback group had a greater increase. So these actually, many of those people had technically poor nights of sleep, but because they were told that, oh, you slept really well last night, and this device says so, they actually then had a much greater increase in alertness, in better positive mood, decrease in sleepiness and fatigue, independent of actual sleep quality. So the conclusion was that feedback about sleep changes the experience of daytime drowsiness, mood, energy, alertness, in a way that's decoupled from the actual sleep quality. And this is an unpopular opinion that I have that a lot of my patients don't like, because I say that the wearable devices that are very popular now for tracking sleep, like the different rings and the Whoop tracker, or the Apple Watch, Fitbit. There's so many things. People are tracking their sleep, and one point to know about them is that many of those devices have not been tested to really be valid measurements of sleep. You can probably tell roughly like what time you fall asleep and time you wake up, but in terms of trying to tell, so many hours of deep sleep, so many minutes of this stage of sleep, I don't think they're really that accurate. And they can actually provide inaccurate data and cause harm. So I've had many patients tell me that, I woke up this morning and I was feeling really good. And I looked at my sleep tracker and it told me I only had like 10 minutes of deep sleep. And then I started feeling bad. And then, I'm really tired today. And I don't know why. And so this, this study just shows that the information you get, your beliefs about how you slept, actually, they're going to affect your whole day and how you feel the whole day. So why would you risk having inaccurate information? So what I tell people who do want to track their sleep is keep a journal by the bedside. Make sure it's paper, old school, like an analog book or a journal. Put a pen or pencil there. And then when you wake up in the morning, you can self-report. So trust your own impression, your own perception. Think about, think back, how did I sleep? How do I feel? And then rate that in whatever way you want, describe it whatever way you want. And that's valuable because that is building trust in yourself. It's a valid way to track sleep, and you won't risk these inaccurate data, that could completely ruin your day, where you may actually have had a good night's sleep. So I think that's a more effective way to track sleep. So we've talked about diet, physical activity, sleep, and now we're going to talk about stress. So I hope by now that it's pretty clear that the answer to this question is going to be yes, that do your beliefs about stress impact the body's stress response on a physiological level? So I want to do a quick poll, if I could see a show of hands. So there's two statements here. There's no right or wrong here. Statement A, stress is debilitating and disruptive and can lead to multiple negative effects on health. And statement B is stress is enhancing and can have positive effects such as improved creativity and performance. So just choose which statement you identify with more at this time. So how many people identify more with statement A? Okay, all right, great. And then how about with statement B? Okay, all right. So it seemed like A was significantly more in terms of the number of people, which I think is that is logical because it is true stress can have these effects, and I think the general information that's out there online, there's hardly anything about statement B, whereas there's a lot of information about the negative effects of stress, which can be real, but there's a different perspective, which is statement B, and it's something that I'm going to hope to share and convey to you tonight in terms of that perspective about stress. So they also tested this concept of stress mindset. So they looked at two groups, one called the stress is debilitating group, where 160 employees in a company watched videos portraying stress as harmful, causing illness, mistakes at work. And then another group, which was the stress is enhancing group, 163 people watched videos portraying stress as useful, potentially improving creativity, immunity, work quality under pressure, and so forth. And there was a definite shift in mindset. This was the first thing that was checked. So after a week, those, when they did questionnaires, those people who'd watched the stress is enhancing videos started to believe stress has more positive effects. They focused more on those. And then the people who watched the stress is debilitating videos thought more about the harmful effects, the negative effects of stress, which is logical because that's the information they're being provided. But then there was actually a difference in terms of how their bodies responded to a stressful public speaking task. So the people with more positive stress mindsets had a better physiological response based on how their stress hormones like cortisol performed. And the people who had more of the stress is debilitating education and mindset had a worse, more maladaptive physiological response. And then people in the stress is enhancing mindset, also, one thing they noticed was they were more open to feedback, which is one important step towards improving and growth. So there was another study as well looking at the cortisol, because that's one of the main hormones for stress. So cortisol is something they tested via saliva testing. So it's a stress hormone that we all have and we all produce, and you need cortisol, but you want it to be in what's called the Goldilocks level. You don't want too much cortisol or too little cortisol, because just the right level will give you optimal energy and allow you to meet whatever challenges you're faced with. And then there's a circadian rhythm to cortisol production as well, where it should be higher in the morning and then lower at night. But you don't want it to be too high in the morning, and that's what this study was looking at. Again, the effect of stress mindset on something called the cortisol awakening response, or CAR, via saliva testing. So what this study also found was negative perceptives about stress, that stress is debilitating mindset, were linked to higher cortisol reactivity, to awakening, the higher cortisol awakening response. indicating that stress mindset influences the HPA axis, hypothalamus pituitary adrenal. That's the main hormone axis that regulates stress in your body, and the response to stress as well. So it's clear that beliefs about stress change how your body's stress hormones work and your stress physiology manifests. So let's back up and just talk about what is stress. So stress is the experience of anticipating or encountering adversity in one's goal-related efforts. So stress only occurs in situations that matter to us. So if there was something that was meaningless or didn't matter, you probably wouldn't care so much if you were having difficulty with that or if it was not working out. It's only when something is important to us that we experience stress. So we know that there's something meaningful that we're involved with or a task that we're performing. So I want to talk a little bit more about this idea of the stress is enhancing mindset. So we usually think of chronic stress as negative, but stress can lead to thriving by influencing biological processes in recovery, immunity. This is a process called hormesis, where the experience of stress leads to beneficial hormones that rebuild cells, synthesize proteins, enhance immunity. This is basically how exercise works. Exercise is stress on the body, and it breaks down, things, and then your body comes back stronger, rebuilds stronger. That's how exercise generally works. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to enjoy stress or find it pleasant or comfortable, or that no one likes stress, but you can leverage it and you can use it in a certain way rather than trying. You can kind of embrace it and not try to escape from it or reduce it or fight against it. You can accept it and then kind of change your mindset about how you're going to work with it, how you're going to use it to your advantage, how you're going to leverage it. And people can shift to a more stress is enhancing mindset in order to have better health and also better stress hormones, better work performance as well. So here are some examples. Stress can enhance creativity, provide a new perspective, strengthen priorities, lead to post-traumatic growth, which we're going to be hearing about later tomorrow. Stress can lead to skilled performance. So for example, athletes succeeding in clutch moments, say the end of a game where there's a lot on the line. Doctors performing life-saving surgery, fighter pilots in action, for example. And then many leaders have really made remarkable decisions under stress that have changed the course of history. Gandhi, of course, Lincoln, Winston Churchill. So I think just reading about some of these examples, hearing about them, thinking about these situations where stress led to positive events and outcomes, that's essentially what was done in that study, where they were training people to have that stress is enhancing mindset. The videos basically reviewed these concepts, which I'm sharing. So we know that stress is inevitable and natural, but it can also be strengthening, it can be good for creativity, and ultimately it can be useful as well. So I think that is the mindset that I would like to cultivate about stress for all of us. Now I want to read this quote from the Bhagavad Gita as well. So we're going to go back to the East. So this is one of my favorite sections of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, verses 1 to 3. The Supreme Divine Personality said, "O son of Bharat, these are the saintly virtues of those endowed with a divine nature." You can see number 1, fearlessness, but also purity of mind, steadfastness in spiritual knowledge, charity, control of the senses, sacrifice, study of the sacred books, austerity, straightforwardness, nonviolence, truthfulness, absence of anger, renunciation, peacefulness, restraint from fault-finding, compassion toward all living beings, absence of covetousness, gentleness, modesty, lack of fickleness, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, bearing enmity towards none, and absence of vanity. So I think it's worth reading through all these amazing qualities that are described here. But the way I interpret it is the very first one that is listed is fearlessness. And I think that to me is the essence of what I'm talking about in this mindset about stress, that we should have a sense of fearlessness when we're faced with stress, and to know that we will have resources and ways to get through the challenges that we face. And then there's also the concept of the sthita pragya, or the equanimous mind, the steady intellect. So I think when you have that attitude towards stress, then under stressful situations, you can have that clarity, discernment, the equanimity, and wisdom to guide you in your actions. And you can avoid the vikshipta, or the disturbed mind, with where the stress causes you to develop restlessness, distractions, inner turmoil, cravings, and so forth. So these are some of the consequences of that positive mindset about stress. So to summarize, so far what we've covered, your mindset impacts your body's response to diet, exercise, sleep, and stress. And remember, it's not an either or. So your choices matter in all of these areas, quite a lot, but your beliefs also matter. Aging. So our topic was longevity. So I want to bring it back to that idea of longevity. So this was a very interesting study. It was the Ohio Longitudinal Study of Aging and Retirement. And they took adults over the age of 50, and they assessed their beliefs about aging. So there are certain validated questionnaires. They had them complete, and they had questions such as, or statements such as, when you get older, you are less useful. And they measured agreement with these different beliefs about aging. And they used that to create a score to say how positive are a person's beliefs about the aging process, getting old, aging itself. And they grouped people into two groups, one with the positive beliefs about aging and one with the negative beliefs about aging. And they followed these people for almost 30 years. And they controlled for all of the common variables that affect longevity, major diseases, age, loneliness. Like, it was a very well done study. And what they found was that those with more positive self-beliefs about aging lived 7.6 years longer on average than those with the negative self-beliefs about aging. So it was about, I think those with the negative beliefs lived about 15 years, and then those with the positive self-beliefs about almost 23 years. And it was a very striking difference that they found. And it all came back to just the beliefs about aging itself. So I think this is something as well that I would encourage all of us to introspect about, because we're all going to age, we're all going to grow old, we're all going to die at some point. But what do we believe about getting older and aging? So one thing in India and in Indian culture, elders are really revered, as a source of wisdom. They're not thought of as a burden, generally always with family. So I think that's quite different from Western culture, where youthfulness is really valued and physical appearance is really valued. But I really think it's worth taking a closer look at our own beliefs about aging, and thinking about how we can develop a more positive mindset about aging. For example, I'm never planning to retire because I found work that I love and plan to keep working as long as I can get up and move around every day. Maybe even after I'm not able to move around, I'll figure out a way. But I feel like as we all get older, that's when we really develop the most wisdom. And it takes so many decades of growth and learning to really develop as human beings. So I think having that right belief about aging is the last message about longevity that I wanted to share as part of this workshop. I do want to also mention in closing some thoughts about placebo. It looks like I have a couple minutes remaining. So also very fascinating research that illustrates this mind-body connection. So just to define a placebo, that is any effect not attributed to an actual treatment, but rather to an individual's mindset, beliefs, and expectations. And placebo effect is something that is accounted for in drug trials in medicine. We always compare an active drug to a placebo to see how different it is because the placebo is so powerful. So there's very interesting research about how, for example, with the skin, subjects who were exposed to fake poison ivy developed real rashes, skin rashes, almost like they had real poison ivy exposure. And then people consuming caffeine, but placebo caffeine, maybe that would work in the ashram. We have placebo caffeine. It's you can feel like you're having caffeine, but it's not. But it actually works just as well. So thinking you're having coffee will have this effect. Placebo caffeine caused increased motor performance, increased heart rate, all the effects you would expect from caffeine. And then the most interesting thing, for joint pain, patients given a fake knee operation. They were given anesthesia. They were put to sleep. They woke up. There was the surgeon was there the whole time. They really did a good job convincing these people they had surgery. And what they found was after 1 year, those patients had the same improvement as those who had the actual arthroscopy of the knee. So what that tells me is that the body will get better if it believes that it should, like after surgery or a major procedure. So those patients had exactly the same reduction in pain, swelling, and so forth. Also makes me wonder about the benefit of actually getting arthroscopy of the knee, but that's a different story. But that's something that is still being done, but it just shows the power of beliefs, that the body will get better if it believes. So final study I'm going to mention is a study of patients with Parkinson's disease, and this tells us about different nuances about placebos, because half the people were told they were going to get a very expensive new IV medication, and then half were told this is a cheap generic new medication. They were both getting saline, just a saline IV, but those who were told they were getting the expensive medication had much greater improvement in tremor, muscle stiffness, the usual symptoms of Parkinson's. So again, the effect size makes a difference. And studies showed that the placebos cause a release in endorphins, which are those compounds responsible for the runner's high. So it's not just in your head. That's the message of my whole talk, is that your beliefs change your physiology, placebos change physiology, and that's through endorphins as well. So we can use this to our advantage in terms of having positive expectation, positive beliefs about things that we're doing in our life that will translate into measurable outcomes. So just to conclude, the mindset is part of the R in the TIGER protocol, looking at rest and stress. Hopefully in the last 3 days, you've gotten some tools to help with toxins, infections, the gut microbiome, a lot about eating as well, and managing stress. So thank you so much for your time. I think we maybe have time for like one or two questions, perhaps. So feel free to just raise your hand, and we have a microphone. There's one there.
Thanks. So I found everything you said fascinating, but there's a part of it too that is a little bit sort of lying to yourself, a little bit based on kind of a delusion that could be positive. Yes. So like, where's the line there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously, nothing I'm saying is to be in denial, where you're, pretending that something isn't there, or deluding yourself about something. So I think the message is really accept whatever reality is there, but then have that fearlessness, like the Bhagavad Gita talks about. Have that positive mindset, have that faith that you can have the resources to overcome that. So. Okay. Oh, was there a question in the back? No. Okay, so I think we can go ahead and wrap. Oh, there's a, okay, one last question here. Yes, go ahead, I can hear you. Yes. Oh, sure. So the question was, could you talk about when stress becomes distress? And so this is also a very good question. And stress is also something that at moderate levels, I think it can have all these positive effects. It can be, cause creativity. You can have that mindset. I think when it becomes extreme, however, then I think it's very hard to have that positive attitude and mindset, and then it does cause negative consequences. So I think it's really a matter of degrees, the way I would think about it, that most of the stress that we face on a day-to-day basis, I feel that it's amenable to this, working with mindset. But there are, of course, extreme situations where it's not possible to have that mindset, and that's okay. And I think that's part of life. So, okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, and have a good night.
So I'd like to thank again very much Dr. Akil Palanisamy for this beautiful teaching tonight. Let's give him another very big hand. And we greatly like to appreciate Dr. Akil Palanisamy for this wonderful several-day program. This was his first time coming to the ashram, and he's leaving the ashram tomorrow. So we'd like to wish him a very safe travels and great success in his work. And we hope he has many more years to do this work where he can get out of bed and do this work with great inspiration. And we wish him great success. And we very much look forward to welcome him back at the ashram very soon. So let's give him, Dr. Akil Palanisamy, another very big hand. So now we'll review the schedule for tomorrow. So tomorrow morning we'll have the satsang here at 6.